Patrick Brammall and Harriet Dyer are the creators, writers, and actors in Colin from Accounts Season 2. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. I have to ask you both, first and foremost, I feel like Season 2 went so much deeper into the characters in such a really terrific way for fans who loved Season 1. When you were breaking the season and the stories you wanted to tell, what were you most excited to explore as writers?
I think we were most excited to push each character a little further. Because the world is now established. We don't have to do any like exposition, like who is Kiara, who is Brett, what happened with Linnell? Like these people exist, and now we can just like go deeper with them, exactly as you said. And I think we were excited also to like in ep 6, we really pulled the rug at the end by making people feel quite sad. Um, and we knew we'd earned that. And so we were excited to go that kind of dramatic.
Also to change in episode 5, we changed the structure of the storytelling. And I was really excited about that one. But also I think season 1 was like a real will they, won't they? And I think we're excited to go, what's beyond that, because they did. So what is, and we decided it's like, well, they did. Should they have? It's kind of the thing we ended up with. And that's more fun in a way. We don't have the clock of like, will they, won't they get together? But it's like, oh, what's in their closets? Why is this mid-40s guy still single? And that dictated actually a lot of the stories in season 2.
Yeah. And yet we were getting some notes because that was the fun stuff, the skeletons in the closet and all of that.
Yeah.
But we were getting some notes like, oh, let's protect Gordon a little, or like let's not make him super undesirable. But it's like it's funny to go, who is that?
Yeah.
What's his story?
There's the episode where you get Gordon and his number. Like she goes, okay, what's your number? How many people have you slept with? And it's 100. But initially it was 200.
Yeah, we made it 200. And the producers were like, no.
Okay, no. And one of our directors in EP Trent, he was like, well, I don't know who that guy is anymore. I don't like him anymore. I'm like, okay. So we moved it down to 100. I remember after we shot one of the scenes that day, one of the
crew, yeah.
The crew.
She was the loader.
She was, the clap loader. She was like, I don't believe he would have slept with that.
Yeah. And I was
like Gordon or Patrick?
Yeah. It was such a she was really throwing shade. And she was like, oh no, Gordon. I'm like, no, you meant Patty.
You meant me. And you'd be right.
You're touching on something I think is so interesting about the show. It has such a unique tone. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious, but like you said, episode 6 is so emotional. Patrick, you get a scene in episode 7 that's really a wallop. Harriet, the whole episode 5. We'll talk about all these, but tone is just so varied and it's so deft. Like you move through these different things so seamlessly. Have you found that harder to navigate in season 2 as you've gone further, or is it getting easier? Like how tricky is it to make sure it's landing just right?
Yeah.
I think it was easier because we did a little bit of it in season 1. And I think we as writers and producers got a little better at doing it.
It was more fun as well.
Yeah.
I think the one I was most nervous about was the end of episode 7 that you just mentioned, because we come from the Wham concert, which is such a funny kind of conceit and hilarious. And then we come into this moment, you think it's going to be funny because Lee, who's such a borderline caricature, he's such a kind of a creepy dude, and you think, here we go. And he says something pretty earnest. He starts a pretty earnest song, which actually is an Australian classic. True Blue is, every Australian knows that song.
It's kind of like Country Road, Take Me Home.
Yeah. And so it can be a little bit like, oh, okay, here we go. And then to segue into Gordon's emotional state, I was really nervous about landing that properly. Yeah. And I was really happy with the way we did it. It was a bit of a trick to do it. And I think we pulled it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so well performed, Patrick. And Harriet, that whole episode 5 is actually harrowing to watch. Like you don't expect to have that experience as a viewer. And it's just like devastating to watch how everything is going so terribly wrong. How did it feel to play that, to take Ash to a place that I don't know if we've ever seen her that hopeless before? So what did it feel like to kind of inhabit that for her for the first time, maybe?
It felt kind of fun because also I've done a lot of drama, and I did a horror movie. It was an indie feature in Australia where I was like pursued by a murderer for about 5 weeks in the Australian bush. And so I love doing that stuff. Also, we liked that we'd really tried to keep that as real as possible. Like we got a friend of ours, Stevie Ray, who's one of the casting associates or directors on it. He read it and he was like, this is so good. I feel like I've heard this story from just a regular girl. Like I fell asleep on the train. I woke up without my stuff. I had to steal food from a Chinese restaurant. Nobody would help me. I got so lost. Like when he said that, we'd actually already changed it and we'd added more stuff that was very elevated where she like took drugs or something. And he was like, oh, that's a shame. He'd read an old version. He was like, oh, I like the old version. So we had a good hard look at it and went, yeah, we've put too many things on this. Let's make it back to what it was. And I mean, I love to hear that you say it was harrowing, because for us, we're still making Colin from account. So, we're still laughing between takes and being silly and having games with the crew. And then we're in the edit, we're being kind of chipper, but also we know it can't have the effect on you that it has. It can't have the effect on us that it has on you, because we are so across the story from the get-go. So I love to hear that it hit, because we never have the experience of watching it for the first time.
Yeah, that's right.
I think the realism, as you're describing, is exactly why it feels that way, because it's just, you can imagine yourself doing and being in that exact situation.
Totally. It's nothing too crazy, right? Like she didn't like dance for money. You know, there was like, there's things that she could have, like, we're thinking about ways that she could kind of get money, and maybe she busks and it's really bad. But even that felt just away from Ashley.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe Harriet would do that, but Ashley's a doctor. She's not an actor.
Harry definitely would.
So if I decided to sing Amazing Grace with a hat on the ground because I needed to get a train trip back, maybe I would, but Ashley fucking wouldn't. I'm sorry.
No. I didn't think you could also write more hilarious or awkward dinner scenes than Ash's birthday in season 1. And then we get 2 in this season that, you just keep topping yourself. What is so hilarious and delightfully awkward about getting a group of people together at a table and just seeing how it's going to melt down? Because you didn't know where those scenes were going to go, and they were hilarious, and at times you're cringing. It's so complex. But what appeals to you two about that so much?
I mean, I think I love a group setting. I grew up at lots of different dinners. We were never allowed devices. If we had a Game Boy, you're not allowed that at the table. We went out to restaurants a lot. I feel like I always grew up looking around at different family members or different friends of my parents and just clocking all the different people that can break bread together, and how it's not like my life was filled with terrible dinners, but I do find them a cool setting for issues. And also
go on.
Also, like, alcohol's involved, so some people are looser than others, but go on.
You've got to have social face. If you're having dinner, you've got to have, it's dinner party. You've got to have social face. And there's all this kind of, subterranean shit going on as well. And then, like, for instance, in episode 4, we throw Rumi in. We're meeting Rumi for the first time. And she's this fucking larger-than-life character with this outrageous larger-than-life hat. And it's like, well, this is going to be fun. Like, we looked forward to plotting that and writing that episode, because it's like, and also we knew the actor we wanted to use for that, Virginia Gay. She's so funny, and it's such a generous performance because she's so hateful. And it's so much fun to do. And in fact, it was so much fun to do that Harry couldn't finish the scene because she was laughing too much.
Yeah.
So she went, okay, Ashley goes to get the bill, and she left so that we could finish the scene.
I couldn't. It was when he was just trying to say the name of the porn director that he used that day or something. He kept saying these crazy things like Jimmy Cockman and all this stuff. And I was like, Ashley's going to get the bill. And because I wrote this episode, I wrote that one. Because I wrote it, I can make that happen. So goodbye, everybody. I'll be at the monitor wetting myself.
Yeah.
That moment where Gordon lashes out, I thought that was such an interesting moment for the audience, because you don't know whether Ash is going to be mad at him for behaving rudely at the table or side with him. And I just love the way that you played it. Did you ever consider, the alternative? Did you always know they would be on the same side of that, kind of just because it's such a ridiculous situation?
That was the kind of
That was the point of that dinner.
That was the plot. Like they'd been at odds all episode.
Yeah.
And this woman, this character, unifies them.
Yeah.
In there, and it is knife edge because he does say, shut up, shut the fuck up. And Ashley would never, and she knows he is a bit drunk and she is a bit mad at him. But yeah, it's so nice to watch her go, actually, it's you, babe.
Yeah, and that's why we were able to rev up, the stuff. And we did those shots of Rumi saying such self-involved things. And so we could really have fun, really amping those up so that ultimately Ashley would be with Gordon because he said what she wanted to say.
It was funny. I watched a rough cut of that with my parents. I was showing them some stuff, and my dad is such a generous audience member, especially with my stuff, knowing I've worked really hard on it. And he was like, I think he was trying to think the best of Rumi. And so he was laughing at her stuff, but quite generously. But I think he wasn't sure where it was going. And so then when Gordon said, just shut up, my dad let out such a big laugh because then it's like he finally got the joke. Because I think he wasn't sure if he was supposed to be
on board with
And then it became really clear that she is the nightmare and she needs to be quiet. And I really was so happy when my dad put it all together,
Let's talk about fathers, especially Patrick. We learned so much about Gordon's family this season, which we didn't know before, especially his relationship with his father. Could have taken that in so many directions, peeking into Gordon's backstory and family life. Why, what was it about this particular story about, how his whole family is kind of trapped in time, and so not progressive and so misogynist and rude? What was so appealing to you as a writer to do that, and also to play it as an actor that, Gordon has somehow separated himself, or has he, fully?
Well, that was Harry's episode. She wrote this one, but we did plot it together, and the germ of it was, when you meet your partner in the context of their family, you go, oh, fuck, some extra pieces of the puzzle are put in place. And what happens when that happens? And you go, oh, don't know if I like that person in this context. And that's exactly what we did. And we did it with a very, Australians who watch it will go, yeah, we all know that family. Or we're like, I think I am that family. Like it's not a crazy, obviously we play it up for comedy but also for reality. But we do play it up for sure.
And it felt very Australian.
Yes.
Because I don't know necessarily the American equivalent of that. It might be slightly more, maybe, I don't know, middle America or something, or slightly more kind of, I don't know, Republican leaning. Like we don't have the same version of those but that is our version of someone stuck in time. And I know that family really well, and it was exciting to show the world the Australian that is not progressive in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the first draft, actually, one of our producers said to Harry, that was a bit of a tough read because of that, the father character, he's such a silverback, which is what we wanted him to be. In a way, it was kind of a companion piece to episode 6 in season 1, where we had dinner with Ash's mum and boyfriend. But in that, you've got the treble note of creepy Professor Lee, who's so fucking funny. He does the most outrageous things. Whereas my dad, what's his name? Brian. Brian isn't funny. He's funny by recognition because you're fuck, but he's menacing, And so on the page, it was kind of heavy.
Yeah, on the page, they're right. It was a tough read, but I had to stick to my guns and say, with the cast we're going to get and the way we're going to shoot this, just please have faith that this isn't going to be horrible.
Yeah.
There will be levity. There will be awkwardness. It will be cringe, but there will be enough funny. Like, for instance, we're screening that episode next week at a screening with a Q&A. And it's a weird one to pick because it isn't the funniest, but it felt nice and contained for an audience that may or may not have seen the show. And it felt like a good slice of Australian life as well.
Yeah.
But it's a big one. That's a big swing, Ep 6.
Yeah. And let's talk about another big swing, which is leaving the audience at the end of the season on this, I guess it's a cliffhanger because we don't really know what's happening. How long did you know when you were breaking season 2 that that's where you wanted to end? And, what is so appealing about leaving us dangling in this moment where there's obviously compassion between the two characters still in that moment, but it's a lot of uncertainty sitting there when it cuts, to black and the credits.
It was cheeky of us to do that. We acknowledge that. But there was an earlier cut actually where there was less hope for them, where we didn't actually come in and see Ashley searching for Gordon, and Gordon kind of going, oh.
Yeah, we played it more in the wide.
Yeah, just coming back like that, and people would start dancing in front of them. And we watched it and we're like, oh, these guys are doomed. Like, they're not going to get over this. And even though we don't know we have an idea now because we're plotting season 3, but at the time we didn't know where it was going to go. But we knew we needed to leave it open. But I don't know how long it was that we knew we wanted to end it that way.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It was a long time, actually.
Yeah, I feel like we plotted 1 to 7 really well, and Ep 8 were just like, it's a wedding episode, and we were just, and that was evident actually in the edit. In the edit, we were like, oh, maybe we didn't plot this properly. We knew eventually in the plot, because I had to write it, that the proposal would happen, but I don't think we set out the season like that. I think we decided that pretty late in the game. For me personally, I really just somewhat sadistically, I just wanted people to get really mad at their screens. I wanted people to be like, no, Gordon, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I also wanted, I don't know, I just wanted him to get too swept up.
I think the idea of proposing at someone else's wedding is something we clocked ages ago as like
a big no-no.
A real social taboo that's funny. And so I think we plugged that, and we knew we were going to end that way.
I think maybe.
Yeah, but we had to fill it
Also, I went through a weird phase of watching wedding fails on YouTube or proposal fails. There's so many, like, in shitty food courts. You're like, why did you think she was going to say yes? Like, you're proposing outside McDonald's. Like, there's some really funny things out there like that. And I like the idea that...
Nothing wrong with McDonald's.
Nothing wrong with McDonald's. I like the idea that maybe Gordon and Ashley's proposal will end up there.
Yeah.
We can't wait to hear what you're plotting for season 3. Patrick and Harriet, congratulations on season 2 of Colin from Accounts. Thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thanks you, David. We really appreciate it.